to start with,
So sorry.
it's okay. Hey everyone, so my name is Sonia Chavez, for those of you who either weren't here or don't remember. And I am just going to start with just a setting of the space. This is actually how we will start every engagement, is really we're all coming in for a unified vision. So it's just to get us all, we're all coming in with different things that happened today, different thoughts in our minds, different concerns, maybe even of being in this space. And so this is just kind of an opportunity to come in and get grounded all together. I came across this by a friend who I work with at the chamber, and she sent this to me because I do workshops all the time, and I felt like this was such a powerful way to talk about how to sit in a space, because the thing I hear the most from people is, I just want a safe space. And what they're typically saying in that is, I want to feel comfortable. And when we get to working with others in co-creation, sometimes that requires that we actually feel uncomfortable. So I love this. There is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars and have caused wounds. This space seeks to turn down the volume of the world outside and amplify voices that have to fight to be heard elsewhere. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our space together, and we will work on it side by side. And so I wanted for you all to just take a brief moment and just think about, what does it require for you to feel like you can sit in a space with respect, and sit in a space with courage, and sit in a space with love? What does that look like for you? What is a part of that space? What is happening? How are people treating each other? What's the language that's being used? What are some of the maybe agreements that need to be a part of that space in order for this to exist? And just really think about that. And then I want you to think about how you bring that into this space today. So rather than saying, I need others to create this for me, what would it look like for you to actually model this when we're engaging with each other today? And this will be kind of thinking of, as you know, we'll have different people come into this meeting every month. How do we create something that is very consistent and something that is clear and boundaried, quite honest? And the only reason I'm not doing a share out is because there's a lot of people and we're not there. So I just you're welcome to share in the chat if you want to. If someone wants to throw out a brief word, that's okay, but just don't want to get lost in the sharing of everything. Violetta, I think it's the next slide for you, I think. This is just to remind you all who we are.
But yes, and Elizabeth, and Brad mentioned that Elizabeth is the third person you haven't met. And I think that's important because she will be in charge of helping the team with mediation. So we felt it was appropriate to actually bring her into the space at the moment, so you can ask questions directly about the process. So I just wanted to highlight this slide with ensuring that Elizabeth was part of the conversation. So this is where we are. We're right at the very beginning, and I just want to leave it as what it is, right? One of the things that, I made the mistake of actually making assumptions last week in terms of saying, oh, we're ready to move forward with this process or that process without really checking in with the community. And so that's the space where we're at right now, is really kind of stepping back a little bit and saying, what is it that we need as a community in terms of alignment? What is it that you need as a community for alignment in order to create vision, in order for us to really be in partnership with one another and saying, you know what, in order for me to move forward, I need these different tools. What are those tools that you need? What is it that we can help, and how can we facilitate the process? We are here as facilitators. We are here to guide your thinking. We are not here to tell you what to do. It really is up to you, because as a community, you know what the answers are. Our job is to help you be able to share those ideas, to be able to move in a purpose that is greater than just one individual person or one individual organization's agenda. It's really looking at, how do we find that commonality, that together you are stronger, and apart you might be in conflict sometimes, because some people are pushing some agendas and not necessarily things that really would benefit that collective action that this group has the potential to do. So we briefly put this as an outline just because we felt it was kind of it's always great to reflect on a plan rather than come up with a paper and fill a blank slate. Oftentimes it's just helpful to ground it. So for the first 2 months, we are really creating alignment and saying, okay, what does it mean to actually be able to have conversations with one another without turning people down, without, disagreeing, and at the same time, honoring people's voices and really creating alignment, right? That is the first 2 months, the sense of purpose for that. And then what is it that we want to create? What is that co-creation? We are here to facilitate whatever it is that you want to create. And we'll talk about the different ways to engage, kind of a menu of options, if you look at it that way. And then it's who's going to do what? Who's going to mobilize, different pieces? What group may be the core group, but at the same time mobilizing different parts of it, right? Talking about, is that a good model to even use in this space? Nothing is set in stone. So we want to make sure that you know that, because I think that oftentimes we're reactive right away without actually stepping back and saying, what is it that I want? What is it that we want for our community as a team, rather than just as an individual, excuse me. And then that final month really looks at what outcomes are we seeking, right? What future momentum do we need? What do operations have to look like through a community-focused leadership collective? And what are the things that we need to have in place? And then you get to decide, do you want to continue having us around, or do you feel that you have the tools that you need to say, you know what, thank you for being here, we got this, right? So we are hoping that that's the point that you get to. And we're also willing to help as long as possible to make sure that the conversations continue and that the space is created for these type of things. Okay, Sonia, back to you.
Yep, so this is just talking about some options of how we can get there. And I want to focus on options. The one thing we know for sure, we're here to help facilitate the monthly meetings. We also know very clearly that mediation was requested. So mediation is on the table. We're ready to go. It's just a matter of identifying people who are opting in for the mediation process. And then we are going to open up a lot of coaching opportunities. Now, a lot of times people are saying, what the heck is coaching, or why do I need a coach? What we are not saying is that anyone needs to be fixed or altered or changed. A coaching opportunity is really about having an outside perspective, an unattached, an unagendaed perspective to sit and say, where are you right now? What kind of obstacles and challenges are showing up, and where do you want to be? And then we go and what's stopping you from being here? And we explore that and move you into that space of where you want to be. The coaching opportunities are going to be both for NWC, for Brad and the new member, and then also for the community. So everyone in the community who is a part of the community will have this opportunity. We're also going to have, for those, if you're someone who doesn't want to do like a consistent one-to-one coaching, like we're going to meet twice a month and you want to do that, you don't want to do that consistently. We're also going to have 1 hour per week with me and Violetta that's open, where 20 minutes, you can just get on the phone with us and have a conversation of like what's going on. We can give you some perspective. We could ask you a lot of questions, and then that's it. We just help you work through something that you want to work through. We will also be a part of the strategy and the process planning. This is where Violetta's expertise really comes through, with actual structures and processes that can really help define, like when you all are making decisions like choosing board members, what does that process look like? When you're choosing someone to represent the community for an opportunity like Brad just mentioned, what kind of things do we want to have in place that just makes that really easy? Small group engagements. So this could be either an offering of group coaching or group workshops, but basically we have some things that we know we can offer. We're also going to create an opportunity today for you all to offer some things up of your own. But this is coming into a space, whether it's in person or virtual, and getting to actually learn how to listen in a different way, learn how to negotiate, and just bringing different skills that me and Violetta have been privileged to learn and to get trained on, and we can bring it to the community for free, and just helping. Basically, we really want to equip the community group with just different strategies and techniques and ways of not only to get along as a group, but also to advocate and to be represented when all of these amazing, incredible opportunities are going to be showing up as it gets closer and closer. It's really just giving you all some cool additional skills to just better move forward with momentum, and to be kind of like a core, this is who we are, this is what we represent, and this is what we stand for. Any questions before we move on from there? Because I feel like that's an important one to stop on. You could ask about coaching, you could ask about what is this all for, or just any questions you want. Yes.
The opportunities for community to participate with coaching, is that possible to be virtual, or is it always in person? And so where?
I would say it's probably almost always actually virtual, because coaching works really well one-to-one on Zoom. It's a great actual utilization of Zoom. I think in person gets really complicated because you're always trying to find a space to meet, and then it's got to be a quiet space. You want to honor privacy, all that kind of thing comes up. So I would say it's predominantly over virtual.
Sonia, that's a good point, that when you get coaching, it is confidential, and it is up to you to share with others whatever that decision is that you've made. So we will not share that with others. And we build capacity in the person to really see their mind and to say, what is it that I want to do about this, right? Because I have a saying that it's like all roads really lead back to me, and what I want to do with this information, with this situation, and with this thought that I have, right? So the person that gets coaching will be the one deciding how they want to share that information. We will never share information beyond that session, and we take it very seriously. We are a neutral party in this. We're coaching Brad, we're coaching, our new member. And so there's kind of whatever they say stays with them, and whatever the community says stays with the community, unless you give us permission to share some of these ideas, right? Which is one of those, we want to make sure that you are consenting to the process and making sure you say, yes, I need this in order for us to proceed, because we never want to force anything on anyone. You are the only person that can change yourself, right? And you have to choose to be able to undertake this process. We're not going to force anyone to do it.
And I want to bring up the reason that when me and Violetta met, why we came up with some of these options is because we were really thinking bigger picture of this isn't, I think it's really easy when we say workshops and coaching and learning and growth that it implies that there's something wrong with anyone in the space. And that is not what we want to imply. I will tell you, I'm a growth junkie. I go and attend workshops and trainings, and I do coaching, and I do all of this stuff all the time. And it's not because I think I'm broken or need to be fixed. It's because I think I'm always trying to expand, and I'm trying to dig deeper, and I'm trying to see what else is there? What else am I capable of? And we were trying to think of how do we, our communities, when I am in trainings and I am in workshops, I'm sorry, but it is typically maybe 1% BIPOC is represented in that space. It is predominantly a white space. And I'm always questioning when I'm sitting in those spaces, how do we bring more BIPOC members in? How do we get more access? Because it's expensive, for one thing. These things are expensive. And they take time. And so we were really thinking this is an opportunity to provide access in a really beautiful way to things that you all may not have ever had access to or wouldn't be able to afford, or any of those things, the same way that the only reason I've had trainings is I was in the military and I lucked out and I got a lot of free training. My job that I had in the government paid for most of the things that I've done. And so I want to bring, and Violetta wants to bring those same opportunities into this space, not in a way of saying there's something wrong with you all, but more of a way of there are some incredible things that exist in this world that when we tap into them, we just become an expanded, better version of ourselves. And when I think of how that plays out in a bigger picture of being a core community group involved with this kind of a project, that to me seems like an incredible opportunity. So I just wanted to be very clear. This is not because we think like anyone needs some schooling or some education or anything like that in any way.
And Sonia, I'd like to add that coaching is not just for issues related to the National Western Center. It's about you as a person and how to become a better human, right? Because there's always those opportunities for us to just learn how to be better listeners, like we mentioned earlier, how to be better parents, how to be better, how to be in better relationships with others. You know, that's really the ultimate goal, because the tools you learn here, you'll be able to use in your workplace, you'll be able to use with your family, you'll be able to use in any type of relationship that you have with when dealing with others, which is almost throughout the day, you can count all those touch points that you have with people, right? So the tools that you learn are going to be valuable in that respect, that it's not just in particular to this project, but it's beyond the project to just help you become have more tools in your toolbox. Because right now, you know, the tools that some people might have, they just kind of hang on to that, and they say, well, this is going to work and I'm going to go with it. And I'm thinking, but what if there could be more options for you, right? So that's what we explore as part of coaching. And in small group sessions, we take one topic that might be of relevance. It might be conflict resolution, right? I want to learn about how do people deal with conflict, you know, and we'll go through the different ways of dealing with conflict, and then do a little bit of coaching session where other people get to see how to see your mind about what it is that you're thinking. You know, why is it that you're in conflict? So those sessions, obviously the people in the room will get to see, and we'll get to coach them in a small group. And it's really amazing, because oftentimes we think we're alone in this. And when you do small group coaching, you're like, oh my gosh, they don't get along with their mom too. Like what's going on here? And so you don't feel as alone as oftentimes we feel, especially, you know, as mothers, as, you know, people who have to work, as people that we have so many responsibilities. And so oftentimes those topics come up and you feel like, wow, there's other people going through this. And it really helps validate kind of your experience, and that you're not alone. And I guess one last thing about this is also the power that an individual has to share their greatest gift with a group, and the power of the collective and having so many beautiful gifts to be able to achieve what you can't do on your own. I think that that's a really powerful thing as well, in looking at the entire process and what your potential is as a collective and as a group that represents, you know, these very diverse areas as well.
Yeah.
Could you go over strategy and process planning as well in a little bit more detail?
Violetta, do you want to touch on strategy?
Yes, I can take strategy and planning, and actually we'll looking at, you know, once we actually can have meaningful conversations, we can challenge each other, you know, we're going to say, okay, what is it that we want to do as a collective together? There are some projects in the neighborhood already as it is, right? And then if we say we really value community input, what does that look like, right? What does it mean to engage the community? If that's something that in part of every process we have, we engage the community. What does that mean, right? So strategy, we're not going to build out a whole strategic plan, but we're going to really say, okay, what is it that we want to do in the next 6 months, right? In the next couple of months, what is it that we want to do in the next 9 months? What is it that we want to do in the next year? And how do we collectively put our super tools in the box and say, okay, I can take care of this, I can take care of that, right? So it's almost like a mini version of a strategic plan, but my process is really plan, do, plan, do, plan, do. So for example, Brad mentioned that there are $400,000 in the pool right now that you can use for a community project, but if we can't come to an agreement as to what that could be used for, the money's just sitting there. Right. And so part of this strategic plan, this mini version, right, is looking at collectively, what is the potential? What is it that you want to do? And then planning to make that happen and actually actualizing that plan, at least for that short term, and then deciding, you know, what does that process look like to be able to propose new projects, to be able to say, yes, we want to take on this project because it matters to this particular group. And then what do you do after that? How do you create action items to actually carry it through? How do you find funding? All those kind of things that are so relevant, right? Because obviously this limited number of funds, it can be used for something. And there are other opportunities to actually say, if we need more money, like how are we going to mobilize that? How are we going to actually be able to fundraise in a different way than what is happening now, which is kind of you're in a circular process and really ruminating and in the thought loop that is very difficult to get out of, right? So it's really just taking a moment to say, we're in this loop, right? What are the thoughts in my head that are keeping me stuck where I'm at, or stuck in a certain right way? Because maybe there's other ways to do things, right? Working through those thoughts and then saying, okay, now that I understand what my mind is trying to do, what is it that I want, right? And actually proposing that. And then what is it that we could do as a collective group that we can't do individually, right? And so that's really part of strategy. And what I mean by kind of the process planning, looking at what is it that we're going to do and how we're going to actualize these plans. Does that help?
If I may very quickly ask a question about that, specifically with the example of the 400K. I would hope that the authority would give the team a good overview of what the legal processes are in place about processes. For example, there is a committee that is not a part of this, the CIF committee, that is talking directly about that. So that seems like an overlap on the surface, but if the focus is CAC, then how does that actually bridge over to that?
Brad, I'll hand that one. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
By extension, is that reasonable? And I don't have an answer, but I would hope that those things.
They haven't been fully briefed yet on that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we haven't defined the different sort of, and we'll do that with this group. So we really, I don't even know if we've talked yet about the Community Investment Fund Committee. There are Community Investment Fund committees who are involved, members who are involved in this process. But they have not been briefed on that yet, but yeah.
Okay, Brad. So one of the things, is a very clear distinction as to what projects belong to the Community Plus group and what projects belong to the other funds, right? And looking at criteria for, do we take on this project? Those are the type of processes that don't exist in terms of the current status right now. So that's a good example of one of the outcomes that could happen out of this, is really defining that clear role in terms of when this type of project comes in, this is where it goes, right? Because right now it's just fuzzy, and it's like, what is the intent of this group, right? What is it that you want to do as a collective? And what does that look like? So that goes back to the process planning piece and that vision for the potential.
And bringing that kind of perspective is super helpful into it.
Sure. One last question, and this isn't really for y'all. I think this is just something that's been looming for a while. Is this group was originally called the CAC, and it turned into the CAC Plus. And at some point, the authorities said that the CAC had outlived its usefulness or its objective. I think was the word, not usefulness, sorry. Its objective, which is why it was formulating and becoming something else. And that always remained unclear on what the status was. Like, is this still the Community Advisory Committee? Is this CAC Plus? What is this becoming? Is the question. And I don't think that's for you, really. I mean, it informs your work, of course.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
It's an open question still. That's one of the many questions, the questions around the board member selection process. What is the group going forward? All still open, entirely open questions.
Yeah, but that is a good point in terms of the potential for the group and also the decision. Every one of you shows up for a reason. Really looking at, the information that we need from people is, why is it that you show up, right? We all mentioned, Brad mentioned at the beginning that people show up because they're passionate and they want to advance, they want to make sure that their voice is heard. And the question is, why, right? Why is that? What is it? What kind of change do we want to see, right? And how do we, what's the role of this group to define that? And what's the role of the National Monster Center Authority to either support in building capacity and doing these different things, whatever that work is, if it's in alignment with what the vision for the whole plan is, or does this group eventually become its own thing, right? Or does it get grouped into something that's already happening in community? That hasn't been decided, and it really is up to kind of the what is it that what is it that the potential is for this particular group. And I think those are conversations that need to happen that haven't happened yet because of different dynamics that have happened.
Yeah. I think we should go to the next slide just to make sure we get to the next couple of pieces.
So we mentioned, well, where is it that we're headed? So one of the things I mentioned to you is that part of, the capacity building here is providing tools to help you see your mind and how you interact with the world. Because oftentimes we're not even aware, and our brain will do everything to protect us because our instincts are to survive in this world, right? So number one, no matter what anybody says, the first instinct is going to be to attack oftentimes. So it's like, oh, let me stop. Like, let me think, why am I thinking this, right? So just providing you tools to say, let's pause and actually say, why is it that this bothers me so much, right? And taking a moment to do that. And with that comes improved relationships, right? A relationship with your family, relationship with your community, relationship with each other, right? And then looking at possibly creating, and this could be one of those things that we talk about, like a community action group. Does that live within this larger group? And then we mentioned the process and strategy, the structure for that. And then hopefully we have these 2 seats filled by then, right? And then we can actually have a clear process to say, this is what this seat means. These are the objectives of the person sitting in that seat. This is what we would want for community voice and representation. And having that clearly defined. And then with that goes in a larger perspective is having a clear vision with that strategy that I mentioned. Okay. Back to you, Sonia.
So one of the things that's really helpful anytime that there's like a group space is having some semblance of agreements. You could say this is a designed alliance. You could say there's a lot of different titles that you use with this, but this is really like, how are we agreeing to be in this space when we're here with each other? Part of it is also, what are we saying needs to be present, and that anyone who comes into this space is opting into this. And so if they're anything other than the things that we agree upon, like maybe this isn't the best space for them. Like putting actually some sort of boundary around what's getting created and protecting that creation. So these are some common ones that we always like to offer. And then we're going to ask that anything else that you feel is important, knowing that when we have different people coming in and joining this meeting, we may have to revisit this every meeting just to make sure it's very clear and if anything needs to be added. But listening with curiosity is always one at the top of the list. And that really means doing the best we could possibly do to turn off our internal chatter when someone else is speaking, and really coming with a curious mind. Or if, maybe someone says something that is triggering and makes you angry, but it's then, instead of reacting to the anger, it's, what is it about that thing that's making me angry? What's triggering about it? And so it's really constantly reverting back into the curiosity space. Respect others respect when others are sharing. And so, of course, we all want to be heard. We all want to have our space. We all want to be able to speak our voices. That's really important. There's also an importance around knowing how to communicate a message efficiently. And so bluff is bottom line up front. It's just a term that I got taught in coaching space. And what it means is, as facilitators, our job is actually to keep momentum in the discussion. And so bottom lining means I might interrupt and say like, hey, would you mind just like bottom lining that really quick? What are you really trying to say? Can you sum that up in a sentence? Because sometimes when we just let people just talk and talk and talk and talk, A, it usually drains the energy out of the room. B, it's kind of a control tactic because that person now is claiming all the space. And that is not really a kind thing, honestly, to do in a group space, because we should all be valuing and wanting to hear input and perspective from everybody. That's actually what makes group space so beautiful, is we get to hear different perspectives from everybody. So bottom lining means trying not to dominate the space, and knowing how to really sum your message up. Honoring people's lived experiences. Obviously, we've all lived different experiences. You all in the community have lived different experiences. And so that means not questioning when someone has said they're feeling a certain way or they experienced a certain thing. For them, it may be traumatizing. For you, you might have been very resilient and strong going through something similar, but it's just really honoring where everyone's at. Confidentiality is that when someone is sharing of their own experience, that doesn't get shared beyond the space. And the learning, the growth, the like, here's what we're going to go do, that's all great, but that there's never any, hey, so-and-so said this the other day, can you believe that? That's crazy. Like, that's not a very confidential way to go through. And then we want to open it up for the group to say, like, what else do you think is important to be present here?
Sonia, with that, but right before we open it up, is the confidentiality part is also don't have parking lot conversations, you know? So if you leave the space and you're like, I can't believe that that just happened. It's like, if you have anything like that to process, that's exactly what the 20-minute sessions are for, and to really look at, why did that bother you so much? You know, why is that still unresolved for you, whatever that topic may be. So we're providing a space to say, you don't have to go into the parking lot and talk to other people about what happened or didn't happen. You have a space that you can actually process that through and then decide, what is it that you want to do? Do you want to confront, you know, whoever the person, you know, do you want to talk to the person, whoever said a statement, things like that, or bring it up or propose it as an idea, right? Whatever that action is, you'll have a space to actually bring it forth so you can discuss it, instead of having side conversations that really oftentimes just trigger the space of something not being resolved. But in the end, people end up talking in the parking lot about it, and that's not okay. So that's what we also mean by confidentiality as well. Okay, so on that note, we want to open up this space for what else would you like to offer? What else is important to you in this type of space in creating agreements?
I can start if everybody is still thinking.
Yeah.
I think accountability
Accountability.
is a very big piece.
Mhm.
And I don't mean this in an interpersonal way,
Mhm.
but the fact that this is, when we're talking about community and community engagement, there's a very big gap in the power dynamics between the partners on the complex, which is the city and stock show, Colorado State University, institutions, some of which have used a lot of their power to exercise what's going on. So just accountability overall in any of these settings, I think is consistently lacked, and this is decades worth of an experience.
What would accountability look like to you, like showing up in the space? If you could give an example.
Well, as an example, you know, I don't want to get or distract too much, but we submitted a letter a couple of months ago, for example, about the lack of following the process, the legal process, designated process. And aside from basically, oops, sorry, we did that. And maybe some, I don't know, I guess disregard for that. There was never really any accountability. And part of that has contributed into the framing of remediation as interpersonal.
So
where's the
accountability
accountability
for you, and I'm just trying to get clear. I'm not trying to open up anything. I'm
Oh,
just
no,
trying to get
neither
clear
am
on
I.
like,
No, neither.
Yeah.
am I.
I appreciate that. I'm trying to get clear on what accountability, so we're clear when we're bringing that into the space, like what it really looks like. And what I'm hearing is I'm trying to actually define what I'm hearing. Is it that there's like a bigger, like that there's a very clear moment of clarity where an organization says, we just want to call out that this is the situation, that these are the things that have happened? What would it look like to you?
I think accountability means people not only owning up to their
Yeah.
mistakes, but really coming to an agreement of where do we go from here.
Okay.
Because an acknowledgement is one thing.
Yep.
But to commit to taking the bigger step, not only like, oh, we won't do that again, but
Yep.
What was the error? Why was there an error? What can we all do to contribute to that not happening again?
Okay.
You know, and accountability also looks different from my perspective. It's different for me to ask for accountability, for example, from Han, you know, someone from the community, as it is for me to ask for accountability from someone from the authority in the city.
Yep.
That's not an equal, you know, setting. It's not an equal exchange.
Yep.
So.
Gotcha. Thank you.
That's a good example too, just to for clarity in terms of If there is something that the National Western Center Authority you feel has wronged you, and you're like, I gotta really talk about this, and I want to sit down with whomever it is at the National Western Center, that is exactly what mediation and really saying, you know what, let's have a conversation where I get to put everything out that's in my head, right? They get to put everything out that's in their head, and looking at what all that information and saying, what is it that we want, right? As an outcome of this, and what is doable, and what will we hold ourselves to, right? So that is mediation if you really feel compelled to sit down with that person across the Zoom screen, I should call it, right? To say, these are the different things that have happened, and this is how, all these different things have played out, and this is what from an individual part, it could happen, and also from a couple of group of people saying, you know what, these are the things that really are bothering us. Can we have a space for that? That's the biggest difference. And with coaching, it's really preparing you to look at your thoughts and think about what it is that you want, right, as an outcome of this conversation. So that's a good example of a topic that you could bring back to the National Western Center Authority to say, I want to sit down and do this. And there's like maybe 2 of us or 3 of us that really feel that this is in line with that. So that is part of the process. So yes, there's accountability with the larger power structure, and there's also accountability within each other. So I definitely want to make sure we separate the 2 and think about it in a different way, because the power dynamic is so different. And then there's also there might be a person or 2 or 3 that you're like, this is not working because the dynamic we have between that, let's figure out what that could be, right? So that could be another opportunity as well for mediation. Mm-hmm.
Anything in the virtual space? Any questions coming out there? Or not questions, any additions of what you would like added? Or anyone else in this room, of course. And just a reminder, like, this is a very much open, consistently growing discussion. So we don't just create agreements and then say, okay, we've created them, we're done. It's very much like, how are these working out? What do we need to add? What do we need to shift? What's not working? Because a group dynamic is always a living, constantly changing thing. And so we also should be constantly checking in and following up in that space to make sure that like situations aren't getting lost, that people aren't feeling unheard or devalued. And that we're really addressing things in a timely way, because a lot of times when there's like a lot of space between things, there's a lot of stories that get created, a lot of miscommunication happens. And so really just trying to be timely about these things also. Not seeing anything else, Violetta.
Okay, are we ready to move into the survey then?
I think so.
Okay, I have too many screens open here. Okay, so I guess I'll go here first. So with this, we have talked about, we want to make sure we present something, because it's easier to get a reaction oftentimes than for people to think on a blank page. It's kind of hard to think, oh, I don't know what I want, or what kind of workshops I would need. So we created a brief survey that will be available once I switch screens. And the link is up there, or you can scan if you have a device. And if you don't have a device, you could write on anything, and we'll record your results as part of that, as part of the data gathering. There's a lot of people that are not on this call that could also help contribute data, meaning information of what they would want to see, right, in these workshops. We invite people to be part of workshops as they want. We are, like I said, not forcing anybody to do anything that they don't want, but we also want to know what interests you the most. So I'm going to offer, if you could scan this, and right now I'm going to switch screens so you can actually fill it out. I have, yeah, and if you're on site, you can just write on a piece of paper. There's 3 questions that we'll be looking at, and you could just write, 1, 2. Okay, there's 4 actually, but 1 is broken up into 2 pieces. So I'll tell you what then.
Steve, can you put up the QR?
It's not my screen that I'm sharing.
Violetta, can you share the
QR code?
Okay.
Oh yeah, you got it? Okay, I can also type in the link in the chat box.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yeah, because I think Brad needs it.
Okay, and I need to switch screens before you actually see it. So just so you know.
Okay.
Yeah, because otherwise I have my tiny little computer with me today.
Or drop
Okay.
that to Brad also. Can you drop it to Brad?
Yeah, I dropped it in the chat. Mhm.
To Brad, oh.
Right, it's on the same iPhone.
Oh, God.
Okay. So on your end, you should be able to see a slide that says, that has different options, the potential topics for workshops, select 3 that interest you the most, and you should be able to see a list of topics. Is that what you get on your end?
Yeah.
Okay, so then you can go through the list and just pick whichever 3 you want, and then you're done.
And you can just, so one thing is you can't see the full names of them, and we have 2 people that are using paper in here.
Oh, my apologies. Okay, so I can definitely read them to you. It says it's conflict resolution and, give me one second, let me pull them up right here.
Pick them.
Mhm.
How do you pick them, Violeta?
Oh, does it not give you an option?
Gives you like a range of 1 to 10.
Oh, gives you a range of 1 to 10.
So pick your top 3. Mhm.
By picking
3.
Taking your 10.
Yeah, pick 10 for the top ones that like 10, 9, 8. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, because the higher the number, we'll be able to see kind of the different things. Mhm. Okay, oh, here we go. Okay, I can walk through them. So the first one is conflict resolution in crucial conversations. Okay, the second one is strategy and direction. The third one is how to choose advocates and representatives within a group. And here's the thing too, we have 6 months. We can pick 6 topics, but we just want to know what are the top ones that you're looking at. Designing spaces for belonging, if that interests you. How to see and understand your mind. Using designing spaces for belonging, yeah. How to see and understand your mind. To create a community of belonging. Okay. Using cultural strengths and what to leave behind.
Okay.
How to listen with curiosity. And holding space. Those are the options that are listed. And the next slide will ask you if there's anything that you're interested in that you didn't see. So don't worry about saying, oh, I actually have some ideas that could be beneficial. You can always offer them in the next slide.
So Angela, holding space is kind of like what me and Violeta are doing. It's kind of like, how do you lead and create the energy, the trust, the respect? What are like what are skills that help in doing that? How do you actually like read what's going on in the space? So like we're facilitating, but I'm also always checking in on what's going on in the room. And so it's like knowing how to sense, oh, someone's getting bored, so I'm going to switch something up, or I'm going to move around. So it's really learning how to be with a group dynamic in a leadership / powerful way. And also, like, if you need to create a space that's vulnerable, how do you do that? If you need to create a space that is courageous, how do you do that? And so it's kind of like playing with all those different antennas. Violeta, do you have anything else?
No, that's it. I think that, like I mentioned, you're going to have opportunity to offer other topics that we have not presented here, both for limited space and also because we don't want to overwhelm. So we'll do another 10 seconds for you to submit. And technically you could rank them all, from 1 to 10, with 10 being your most preferred one, and it'll kind of rank everything else. And this survey will go out to the people who are not in the room right now too, so they can also, if you're like, oh, I didn't quite get it right, you'll get that link, so you can try again. That's not a problem.
Violeta, can you go through and display the titles
Yes.
again? Sorry,
I'll do kind of
Sorry, I
5
ran
seconds.
No,
5 seconds between them. Does that work?
So conflict resolution, inclusive conversations, the first one.
Okay, next.
And then strategy and direction.
Okay, and that one's getting a lot of votes. You see that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Then how to choose advocates and representatives within a group.
And that one's kind of, some people are interested, some people are not interested, kind of like in between.
And then designing spaces for belonging.
Okay, that one's kind of on the low end. So that would put us at probably exit out.
And then how to see and understand your mind.
And this is an interesting one because some of you don't care, others do care, right? So it's like, okay, then that one-on-one coaching might be for you if that's something that you really, really are interested in.
And then using cultural strengths and what to leave behind. How to listen with curiosity. And then holding space. And if none of those are, you could literally just write down like, here's what I want.
Yeah, and I'll have the next slide do that. Are we ready to move forward?
Then we submit, or do we have to submit?
Do they submit that first one?
Yeah, I think once you click through them, just go, I'll go to the next one. Yeah, so submit, I'll give you about 5 more seconds and then it'll show you a different page after. Okay, a couple more coming in.
Just a comment, Violetta, the GESC tag as the survey extension name is an acronym often identified as
Okay.
a short form of GES Coalition. So good thing.
Yeah, I tried to put the plus and it didn't like it. And I tried Colorado, it didn't like it. So that was what wasn't used. But yeah, that's a good point. And you can tell me what is it you want? Because I was like, I tried like 10 different things and I thought, this is not working. So we can also just leave a random number.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Caution in place to not default to rebranding without open discussion. Yeah, so like not even giving the perception that we're rebranding. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I tried the plus and I tried community and that didn't work. It was too long. So, okay, we're moving on. Okay, so, oops. These are the ones I listed before. So that way you don't relist them. And now is, look, you can actually, I believe you can add topics on your end. Is that the case? Or did I completely like ruin this slide? Or I can clear it too, because I think that it just kind of took the, give me 1 second. I'm gonna, oops. I think I just have to clear it. 1 second. Okay, let's try again. Okay, there we go. I will share the screen. You should see a clear slide now. I think it took the info from the previous slide. Okay, if there's anything that you don't see here that you're like, we need this topic, very important to what we're trying to do, feel free to add it and submit. And those of you that are on paper, just call them out loud and we can also submit, for you. So it's not.
Oh, I'm okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm fine. Thank you. How you been? It smells good. Look, good. Good to see you.
John, did you have any additional topics you wanted added? No? Cool.
I have a bunch of them, but I want to listen to what other people have to say.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. I like it.
Oh, man. Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you.
And if you'd like to submit, I can submit for you. I mean, if you don't want to submit, I can submit for you as well.
And this is not like speak now or forever hold your peace.
Correct.
Either, right?
This is very much open to continual input.
Yeah. It's just to get us grounded on where do we even start, right? In terms of putting together a workshop that would be beneficial for the people who are here, who want to move forward, right? In terms of that. And then for the small group coaching sessions, there'll be individual topics that we say, for small group coaching, we'll have this topic. If that interests you, hop in. If it doesn't, that's okay. Okay, so we'll take another minute for that. Okay, if you have any other ideas, submit them. And then I'll move to the next slide in a couple of seconds. Okay, ready to move on?
No,
No? Okay, I'll wait. I'll wait.
my fingers are too fat.
No, I'll give you time.
So these are not gonna pop up, are they?
If you put anonymous, it shouldn't. I believe it. Does it? Do you have that option? Or you can just put whatever you want. You can put anonymous as a name.
No.
But they do pop up, and that is that is something to keep in mind. You know, so this is this fine line between transparency, right, and also being able to share freely. So you have to decide, like, what does that mean for you in terms of do you want to share and put your name on it, right, and own it, or work through, like, why is it that you need to be anonymous? Sometimes that helps too, just get people's mind wrapped around, like, the process and understanding their mind. Okay, are you ready now? One more?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you, Angela. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point, Sarah. It's like, does everybody need to be present to make certain decisions, or are there some that are made in whole group versus small groups? Okay, and then our last part, that we had a 3-part agenda with Brad giving the first part, talking about the process a little bit more. And then this last part was really making sure that we get permission, right? To say, we have an offering for you, but we also want you to say, yes, I want to be part of this. And if you don't want to be part of mediation, that is okay too, right? If you say, I have some things, I know that I need to go through mediation because I am in a relationship that doesn't feel right with, X, Y, and Z. We don't need to know the details. All we need to know is that you're interested. So the next slide will ask you about that. And then the remaining of the meeting, the last 22 minutes that we have Elizabeth to really give us an at a glance. And if you have any questions, be able to answer anything about mediation. So Elizabeth, do you want to pop in terms of kind of giving a brief overview as to what the goals of mediation are? Who would be a great candidate for this? And one of the things that I want to clarify is that initially, we said, we identified people, and then we stepped back and said, actually, people need to identify themselves, because part of the process is consent. And so if you don't feel that you're in wrong relationship, that's fine too, right? So there is this sense of, this is a resource for you. And so I want to kind of hand it over to Elizabeth to tell us about, what is the process? What does it look like? And what's the benefit, right, to a community group like this one?
Thank you, Violetta. So I'm Elizabeth. Nice to meet you all finally. I offer a accepting, consensual, and collaborative process in mediation. We do collaborative decision-making. We make sure everyone feels heard. And at the end of the mediation, it's up to you what happened. So we're process over outcome, and the mediators practice the process, and you all participating decide the outcome. We help you get there. So I'm here to answer any questions, or Violetta, I think your next step is to ask them if they want in, and then I'm here to answer any questions.
Yes, so the last 20 minutes that we have, it will be for people who want to just learn about, really say, I definitely want to sign up for this. I have questions though about the process. I want to know, what type of information you're going to collect from me, like all these type of things. We want to make sure that, and it goes back to, we want to create a transparent process. And if you say, I want to be in mediation with other people, they will know, because we have to reach out to everybody, right? And so there's kind of that, it is consensual, and all the parties have to know, right? Because we can't just kind of spring it upon them and say, hey, by the way, you're showing up to mediation. We can't do that, right? So part of this fine dance that, Sonia calls it, is looking at, this is a resource for you. If you feel that it is not pertinent, not important to you, you are free to go, kind of thing. And then if you are like, I want to learn more because I feel like I might be I might benefit from this part, then we want you to stick around. Brad, before we kind of break off into that part, is there anything else that you want to offer from your perspective?
I don't think so, other
Okay.
than if there are any issues with the authority, I'm happy to participate in the mediation process to work through those.
Yes, and so that is what we need from you. We need you to say, I want to be part of this mediation process. This slide will not show you results. The results are hidden. So if you submit anything, all you're telling me is that you want to be part of this process, and I will have the permission to follow up with you, essentially. So that's really what this slide is going to get at. And I'm going to stop sharing because, like I said, that data is not going to be shared with anybody. And so that's something that I want to make sure that we offer to you, and that, you know, we take the last 20 minutes to ask any questions, to really talk about the process, why it's necessary if you want, you know, in terms of getting to this, past this first stage of alignment. On that note, what questions do y'all have? And like I said, if you're like, this is not relevant to me, thank you so much for coming. You are feel free to, you know, pop off. That's okay too. Mhm.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Sorry, once again,
Yeah.
the silence kills me.
Somebody does.
I'm gonna go back to my
Mhm.
question about accountability. I'm personally not interested in mediation. I can come to this room and I do feel comfortable. I would like to, you know, of course, abide by what norms we collectively can agree to. But if somebody had, for example, and requested a mediation with a representative of an agency, of the authority of the board, that to me seems unequal, that they're in a position of power. Do they not have to commit when people have a grievance against them?
Hmm.
'Cause that
So-
seems unequal.
Elizabeth, do you want to chime in on that one?
Yeah, so, and I'm sorry, I don't have you on Zoom. So what is your name?
I'm Alfonso.
Alfonso. Nice to meet you. So I definitely hearing that accountability is really important to you. And I'm also hearing you mention what happens when there's big differences in power dynamics. And in the mediation process, only the people who participate can make plans for themselves. So it's a consensual process. I can't make a plan for someone who's not present. I can only speak for what I am willing to do and what I consent to do and what the other person in mediation consents to do, and then anyone else in that mediation. And so the question about accountability, yes, someone could show up and yes, there'll be a power dynamic, but the mediation process neutralizes that power dynamic so that everyone has an equal voice and equal say in the outcome of the mediation. And then that accountability piece, we ask people to make plans and they have to consent to those plans. So if you meet whoever you mediate with, they're either going to consent or not consent to what happens, and whatever they consent to is what happens. What they don't consent to doesn't happen at all. And the accountability is that because you've consented to it, we don't have to enforce it. We don't have to check up with you, because we're ensuring in the process that every plan you make, every action you take is something you consented to and agreed to. Does that answer your question, Alfonso?
Actually, that's not really my basis for concern. My basis for concern is someone in a position of power should be expected to be held accountable, and if requested for mediation, should do everything possible to agree to it. Of course, respecting their autonomous, their
Autonomy.
Autonomy, sorry, as a person, but you know, that's not equal to me requesting a mediation from a neighbor. You know, that's a difference, you know, because my fear is a person in a position of power can pop out and be like, I don't feel comfortable with a mediation. Where's the accountability for a person in power?
I think, you know, like right now, when we're thinking of this particular specific situation, I don't think we're running into that. I don't think that there is any pushing against from any of those spaces. And I think this will have to be if another situation arises, how do we encounter that if someone does push back? because I think it needs, again, it's part of what's building trust in the group. And this is why I think it's so important when we say like having a unified community, is because when you have that and the community isn't infighting within itself, then the community says, this is what we are asking to come to the table, right? And like a big part of our ask is accountability, and that when a situation happens and we request mediation, that the organization meets us there. I don't think it's a big issue in this particular situation, but I think what you're calling to is like, this is one of the things that we could actually create together as a part of the vision, is like, what kind of structures are in place that whenever this group ends up being called, you're very clear on what you're going to ask for from the other place. And if they can't meet you, then now what's the next step? Now what from there? You know?
Always a first.
I mean, feel free to keep like digging in deeper. I just was trying to reflect what I was hearing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I want to give other people a chance as well.
Well, and I also want to make sure that, you know, Brad, that was something that we brought back to Brad to say, hey, what if this is not an issue between people in the community? It's really about the dynamic between the authority and the, you know, that piece. And that was something that Brad agreed to say, yes, we will have mediation, small group mediation sessions with whomever has any issues, to make sure that the process helps bring that clarity that both of you are seeking, right? Because I think it's also important to be able to voice what it is that's not working in this dynamic, because it is such a different power dynamic. Mhm.
Yeah.
My name is John Sapian.
Hi.
And I don't know if anyone's told you this, the facilitators, but I want to say, bienvenidos a mi barrio.
Gracias.
I am simply elated that you are involved in our communities. And it's because it's badly needed. And I think accountability is a two-way street, from the bottom up and from the top down. And I understand that a lot of us in our neighborhoods are not prepared to do that. Some of us are not qualified to do that. And a lot of us are just not able to understand those processes. But with your assistance, I feel very confident that the groups in our 3 neighborhoods can come together and work these things out to where we as neighborhoods will benefit from this entire effort of the National Western Building Project, the programming, and ultimately from the benefits. And there's all kinds of benefits we derive from this. So I'm glad to see this process, and I hope that my neighbors will join in wholeheartedly. I came to listen more than anything. Even an official wouldn't get in trouble if he didn't open his mouth. But I think that we all have to take the bait now. And that's maybe a crude, not very good way down, but opportunities are here for us.
Mhm.
And let's get moving and get it done. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, and John, I'm hearing a lot of gratitude and hope and confidence in moving forward and feeling supported by this team. And I want to just assure you that, like, as a mediator and my team, we're the professionals that come in to do collaboration, collective decision making, and conflict resolution. So going through our process is going to be different than any other meetings you've been in, because we've designed a process to have an outcome where everyone's consented, everyone's collaborating, and everyone's accepted, and will hopefully result in some action plans for the future that are very clear for whoever decides to participate in the process.
The truth of the matter is, our 3 neighborhoods have been in conflict for I don't know how many years past. At every different level.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good opportunity for us to look where we've come from and make sure that we avoid those pitfalls of yesteryear.
Yeah. I'm also hearing you like reflect on how long of a history this is. and looking to learn from your mistakes. And also what I always tell people is if you want a different outcome, you need to try something different. And in this case, if you're looking for that collaborative decision making, mediation is that different process that can get you there.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I see Angela's hand up.
Hey, everyone. I just want to touch on the word power
Mhm.
and the power dynamics that exists. And the power is not necessarily always the national Western. We all individually have our own power, and how we use that power with other people can either be a positive or a negative. And I think that that needs to be addressed and kept in mind. As John has said, you know, we've as a community been marginalized for generations upon generations, you know what I'm trying to say. So no caffeine today. So that has made us tenacious and resilient, and we will do everything in our power as individuals and as groups to use our power. But again, power can be used for good or power can be used for bad. And the ego feeds a lot of things. So that's one of the things that I think we need to keep in mind as we move forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Angela.
Angela.
That the power dynamic, I hear you say that the power dynamic really is something to be addressed. And I think that that is part of also seeing your mind, right? Just people's minds and where they're at with their relationship with that word. I think that that's really important as well, because we all have power. And sometimes we give our power away just by the sheer how we show up oftentimes. And so definitely that is a potential topic that we can discuss as actually calling it out and maybe doing a small group session or individual sessions, because this might be a recurring theme, right? And it might be something that really takes time to work through. I think that John mentioned, you know, the dynamics of the yesteryear. And it's one of the things that coaching really focuses on is really grounding you on this is today, right? This is what's showing up. What future do you want to create? Because I tell people we're not therapists, you know, we're not going to go back into history and figure out why it is that you have traumas, you know, because in reality, it's not our job. We're not trained therapists. And there's some really hard things that have happened that we are not equipped to resolve for you. And that is another fine line in terms of like saying, this is what coaching can do. And this is, you really need therapy for this. And we will definitely make that separation, because we're not here we don't have the tools to deal with trauma the way that therapists do. So that is definitely a distinction that I wanted to make given this conversation. Thank you. Any other thoughts?
Violetta, I'm happy to also just share a quick detail about the configuration of how mediation can work. It's really going to depend on who wants to participate and with whom, and what you all decide and consent to. But the options are, you can have an individual session where we gather a lot of information and then we put that in a collective report. So you can have it by yourself, you can have it with 2 people, or you can have it in any combination of number of people and groups. We can have multiple mediation sessions happening in parallel, and then the result will be like a full collective sort of list of action items that you want to plan on. And then what Violetta said about trauma is, yes, we're not therapists, and mediation process is designed to address power dynamics and neutralize them so that everyone has equal space and equal self-determination in the process. And we do harness that post-traumatic stress and that post-traumatic growth and resilience in the mediation process. So I just want to make a note of that. And then if there are any other questions about mediation, that's why I'm here today.
My apologies, the slides got crazy. I don't know what happened. So some slides kept other pieces of other slides. If you want mediation, submit your name and we'll follow up with you. That's all that I need from you.
I think it would be helpful for anyone who's going to participate just to know like what would be the next step in the process.
Good point. So the next step in the process would be, once a person identifies that yes, I want to be part of a mediation process, I will reach out to you and schedule a 20-minute conversation to just learn more about the dynamics, learn more about you as a person. And then we're going to start the process by having a few one-on-one coaching sessions to prepare you for mediation. And in that process, Elizabeth will also reach out to you to schedule a 1-hour information meeting to really gather all your thoughts, do a download of everything you want to put on the table, right? All the thoughts you're having and why the issue is what it is. And then from that, once she has all that information, she'll bring the parties together. And Elizabeth, can you pick it up from there and tell me what happens after?
Yeah, so depending on the configuration, we have 3 phases. The first is where everyone shares their understanding of what happened and can kind of say whatever they need to say. Then the second part is when you brainstorm ideas for what you want to do about what you've shared. And then the final step is future focus, where we come up with a plan together and decide how you want to work on executing that. And then our navigator or person who keeps you accountable can follow up and see how your contract or how your plan is going, because the mediators just help you create the plan, and then the navigator helps hold you accountable to that, because the mediators were acting in third-party neutral role, which just means that we don't give advice, we won't make suggestions, and none of the action items come from the mediators, they all come from you. Does that answer your question, Violetta?
Thank you. Yes. Full process. And initially we thought, oh, the people who will go through mediation will get the one-on-one coaches, but in stepping back and reflecting, we realized that one-on-one coaching should be available to anyone who wants it. So we did open it up to really reflect the need of people who want it, not necessarily to, like Sonia said, to fix anybody. It's really a space for you to just learn how your mind works, right? And what it is that your mind is doing. And then in relationship to others, what are you going to make that mean, right? So. Sarah.
I just was thinking on Alfonso's point that there is such a different dynamic when some of us represent organizations. So I was curious what it looks like when you have to bring other people into the room, or when your own ideas for resolution might look, they might be confined by an organization rule. And also just wanted to speak, I don't want to speak for all the organizations here, but saying by showing up, we hope to have more effective relationships and to really utilize this opportunity. So if anyone needs to bring us into the space, I would love to participate. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Sarah. I think I'm hearing 2 questions. One about what happens when someone is not in the mediation that maybe needs to be brought in. And the second question about if there are institutional limitations around like what you're able to do, how we handle that. Is that right? Okay, so for the first question, we can only make plans for people who are present in mediation. So if someone who's not there needs to be doing something to resolve it, then we invite them into the mediation. They can consent to come or not. And if they do not consent to actually being in the mediation process, we might have a backup plan where we offer like a one-on-one session to find out what are they capable of doing and what are they willing to contribute. The second question, about what if there are like institutional limitations around like what you're able to do? If there's uncertainty around that in the session, then the action item would be like Sarah goes and finds out what she is able to do by asking this person, right? Because that's something, Sarah, you could do if you were in the mediation. If you know for sure, I'm not able to do this, then you can't consent to that plan and that idea. And so it won't go in the final plan. And what can go in the final plan are things you can do, or again, you can invite someone in who does have the authority and autonomy to do that. So we honor self-determination. And although we may be representing organizations, we only make plans and agree to things that we know we can do with our own power and our self-determination. Does that answer your question, Sarah?
Yes, thank you.
We are at time, and I also want to respect part of creating these agreements are to respect each other's times and each other's many responsibilities. So if you do need to reach out to me, I can put my email in the chat space, And that way you can reach out to me. We can connect you if you have further questions. We can connect you to whoever we need to make sure that we can get this process, moving from that starting point to an actual momentum, right? To come up with those workshops that could really help create momentum to get a plan going. So on that note, I believe we are done for the day. And I put my email in the chat box. And then I also, if you are interested in mediation, just send me an email directly if you didn't get a chance to fill out that last slide. And then I will start the process for you and arrange it with Elizabeth to be able to get that going. Okay. Thank you all so much.
Violetta,
Yes.
Brad, I just want to say out loud to the group folks who are here and online, I am 100% willing to participate in any request for any of those conversations. I haven't been clear about that.
I don't doubt that from you at all, Brad.
Okay.
Sorry. No, I don't doubt that at all.
Okay.
I think
All right.
I've
I just
seen
want to
my
make
career.
sure I'm clear that
No, yeah.
I'm all in.
I'm speaking in abstract.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, well, and that's a good differentiation, right? In terms of our boundaries, and it's like, what can this group do? And that is another thing that we have to clarify in terms of our process for strategy, right? Because if it's something so big that it's not achievable, then we're always going to be spinning and ruminating and nothing's going to move forward. So that's a good distinction, that it is about, the organizations in the room and the people in the room for now. Okay, thank you all so much. I am getting some comments from the chat box before we go, and I believe we are done. So really appreciate your time. And we are so excited to be working with you. We are available whenever you need to ask any questions. We're here for you. Clarifications, let us know. It is much easier to have a conversation, just so you know. Email back and forth doesn't work very well, because when we read emails, the voice in our heads creates a whole different dynamic. Whereas if we actually have a conversation, it can go a lot smoother and oftentimes a lot faster. So that is something that I definitely want to share out loud, because I value you and I value what you have to offer, and I want to make sure that it comes across the right way. Okay.
How and when will we communicate to the group the agenda for our next meeting?
Good question. So what we need to do post this meeting is, some people were not able to make it that really wanted to be a part of this meeting. So we're going to send them the recording, and we're going to send them a link to the survey. I'll format it differently because that was not very, very friendly. So I'll send it as just a Google form. If you feel that you want to just capture your data there, feel free to fill it out again. The next step will be prioritizing those, and then we can talk about what does the monthly workshop schedule look like for the next 2 months or 3 months, right? We don't want to get too far out because we want to be responsive to whatever's coming up, and at the same time moving things along. So by next meeting, we should have a schedule of some sort to say, these are the offerings for the month of July or the month of August, right? Really working in 2-month increments. And then we can give we have 3 mediation teams going right now, leaving a very high level. And if at any point you feel that is something you need to let us know. That way we don't get stuck in this alignment part for 6 months. We really want to make sure that we focus 2 months on it to be able to create those agreements, to create that how are we going to communicate together. And as new people come into the space, that we hold them to you're coming into this space and this is the expectation, in order for us to continue to be able to hear everybody's voices and to hear everybody's thoughts and ideas. This is the process we've developed together. Okay, so that is what I'm thinking for the next one, Brad, to be able to have like our step is, these are the workshops that are going to be offered. We're going to offer 1 workshop per month, and we're going to offer 1 small group coaching topic per month. And then we mentioned to people who want to take advantage of the 20-minute coaching sessions, we can schedule those at any time. And people who want to take advantage of the one-on-one coaching sessions, we can schedule those at any time. We can just put that as an offering that you don't have to wait for next month to actually start taking advantage of these things, because those are already available for you. Any other questions?
Just to be clear, so y'all, the three of you will be facilitators, or the two of you.
Yeah, me and
And-
Violetta will be facilitating the meetings, doing the workshops and the coaching, and then Elizabeth will handle all the mediation.
Cool.
And I'll be coaching prior to mediation before you go out. So Elizabeth and I will be working hand in hand in that. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all so much. If that is all you have, I believe we are closing the meeting. Brad, do you have to do anything official?
I hope not.
Okay. You have a little gavel. Well, thank you all so much. I hope you have a great night. Bye.
Thank you.